Good morning, everybody. Stu Smith here, going live and taking questions. But as you guys congregate, we're going to chat a little bit about this time of the year that yields SOAS preparation as well as buds prep. So, what does that look like? So, if you've been one of the recipients of a SOAS spot. I guess there's probably still some groups that may not have heard yet. You have OCS guys, ROTC, and Academy groups. I know the last screener just occurred at the Academy. Met a bunch of ROTC guys that were visiting, as well as watch the Academy guys go through their screener. Know a lot of OCS guys that are starting to hear that they got selected. So now what? Well, you still have to crush a PST, which my advice for anybody going to SOAS is if you took a PST in December and submitted your paperwork, it's not a bad idea to be able to do better than your submitted PST. So you want some PST focus as well, because that is an objective grade that they will have on you. There's some other objective grades as well, such as a mile swim with fins. So prepare those legs for the rocket fins. There's a 4 mile run. There's a 9 mile ruck. You know, all these things are common knowledge. So just make sure you are understanding what's in front of you. There's some logs, there's some boats. So, do some overhead presses, some overhead holds, those type of things just to prepare you for the week that is SEAL officer assessment and selection. Now, there's obviously some leadership interviews. Uh, your athletic history, your academic history, your leadership history will all be um, graded as well. It is fairly competitive out there. So good luck and do your best. And, don't be a dick out there. Be a good team player, help people out. I always tell the academy guys that, it's real easy to be kind of cliquish out there. You guys have been exposed to more spec war stuff than most people. Um, they're doing a lot better job now of getting exposure to ROTC and OCS guys, even with the exposure weekend. So do those if you have the opportunity before SOAS. I think there's a couple coming up here in the next few months. Um, but yeah, help people out. Some people are civilians, have never worn a uniform before, and guys in the ROTC and the military, the spec academy guys can help those guys out. It's you're going to pay the price if you don't, so you might as well be a good team player and everybody wins. But that's really it. It's a week long course, so nothing that should be super challenging. But just get fast. Get fast on those timed events. Get strong on those events that require some durability. Um, yeah, and just go and crush it. You know, be well spoken when you take interviews. That's what you got to do. Now, if you are finding out that you're just getting a buds contract and you have boot camp and then buds right afterwards, same advice for you. Assess yourself. Make sure you have a good PST score because that will be graded at prep for you. And the other events you should have some understanding of will be, um, the pool skills, treading, running 4 mile timed runs, a good standard. I usually try to get everybody under 28 minutes. Some people are faster, some people are borderline on that. I wouldn't try to put it this way, I wouldn't be 28 with a gut check, right? Because there'd be days that you just you gotta you don't have a gut check in you sometimes. And if you go too slow, you're going to fail. So 28 minutes, at 75, 80% of your max effort is a really good place to be. You could go faster if you wanted to, and you can, but be able to do, a 7-minute mile for 4 miles, at not a breakneck pace. Um, let's see, swimming with fins, that's a big one. And grip, work on your grip. So that's my advice to you guys. All right. So let's see what else we got here. Say someone falls out of the boat during a boat race as a swim buddy. Should I jump out the crew and help my teammate or stay in and help the crew? Well, tell you what, if somebody falls out of the boat crew, one, the boat crew is going to feel it. And that's one less person supporting the boat. So the last thing you want is two people supporting the boat. You can stop the boat, go grab him, pull him up under if you want to do that, but chances are it's going to be futile because that person fell out of the boat for a reason. He's probably hurt. You could cheer him on, say, "Hey, come on, get back in here. We need you," type of thing, right? Or you can just keep going. And eventually the BUDS instructors will reclassify the boats and you'll have another person in there from another boat crew to fill that spot. That's typically how it works. Let's see here. Somebody says, "Are you gay?" Ah, that's a good one. No, I'm not. Got a wife and 2 kids and doing good. So no comments or questions over here. Let me see what else. What else we got? Let's show some CSS videos since I don't see any other questions. This is a live Q&A. If you got questions, send them. But while you guys are doing that, I am going to just show some CSS videos. And you guys can listen to the critique. I think we have several out here. We got some with fins, some without fins. So check these out. So here we go. And let's look at this guy. So we got kicking off the wall, jumps right into the CSS, which is how you do it. Now, looking at this, I see a little bit too much knee movement. Now, it's not a bad idea to have some knee bending in there. You don't want to be like straight-legged, but you want to have more hip action in this. This isn't horrible. Now, I would say this, try not to, when you kick off the wall, you will have an opportunity to swim in the pool. Try not to plow the water anytime, with or without fins. See this? Your head just plowing the water. You can get a really good kick off the wall, be a little more streamlined and not jump right into your strokes, right? So, kick off the wall, do some dolphin kicks, come up for your breath, and you'll have some good momentum probably coming up around, the end of this red marker right here versus start stroking it right here. That's good though. I like this. See this extension? This is really good. This is where you want to be. You want to get about 3 kicks and then breathe. 1, 2, let's see. 1, 2, 3, pull. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, pull. Yeah, this is good. That's where you want to be. This one looks better than the other one. It was yeah, I think that might be your weak side. This side looks a lot better. You can see your hips getting a little more involved. But you don't want to look like you're riding a bicycle, and you're starting to look like you're riding a bicycle. See how your fins are just kind of going up and down in a little circle like you're sitting on a sprocket, right? You don't want to do that. You want to actually open your legs like this, not spin in a circle. So, yeah, don't bicycle. If you feel yourself bicycling, you're doing it wrong. So what pool skills are at SOAS? There's some pool skills. You got the PST, obviously a 500-yard swim. You may have an open water swim with fins for 1,000 or a mile, or it may be in a pool. I'm not sure. I think depending on uh, sewage, it it matters whether or not you're going to be in open water or in the pool. Sometimes the water's contaminated out there. Um, let's see. You have treading, which is full cami tread. So you'll have a camouflage, all your uniform on. You got to take your boots off, pants off, blouse off, hold them over your head, tread them, then put them back on. And you do that as a boat crew together. Um, and that's surprisingly difficult. That's like 40, no, about 25 minutes of treading, which, doesn't sound like that hard of an evolution, but it's not easy. Do you recommend swimming with jet fins or regular swimming fins? Well, whatever you are going to be issued in your future is what you should swim in my opinion. Um, I like jet fins over rocket fins. They look exactly the same. In fact, if you go through the fin selection of when you're at Buds, when you're trying things on, you may even find some jet fins in there. So, or bring your jet fins with you to Buds, and I doubt anybody will even notice that you're using your own fins. What's a good substitute if I can't swim for 2 weeks? Just more cardio. I would suggest running, biking, elliptical, rowing, all the above. Mix it in there. And usually, what we do is when we can't swim, and let's say we have a 2,000-meter swim that day, um, total yardage. So for every 500, we add 10 minutes of cardio. So that would mean if you have a 2,000-yard swim, you got to make up 10 minutes for every 500. That means 40 minutes of extra cardio to replace it. C. Ray, how you doing, buddy? Um, have you helped out any guys wanting to join the Royal Marines at all? Yeah, briefly, just not here locally. Online, I get people who need some help overseas, usually UK, Australian, get some Danish guys and Norwegians, mostly NATO guys, obviously. Um, and, they use some of my programs to prepare for what they're doing. Helping your teammates pass and not slowing you down. Leo says, what role does emotional intelligence play during buds? I mean, it helps to be mature, right? And more stoic with your emotions than to be emotionally frustrated or, show your emotions on your sleeves. That's probably the last thing you want to do. They would rather see a thinker through a problem than a reactor and reacting, immaturely. In the documentary, they always say to focus on team instead of solo player, but how much of that is trying to make sure you self pass versus helping your teammates pass? Well, you want everybody to pass, that's in your boat crew because you want a strong boat crew so you can actually perform. Um, I can't say I was always concerned about other people and their performance. I was concerned about other people just being a part of the class and part of the team. And yes, it was nice to see everybody pass, but it wasn't a deep desire to what's a good word for it? make sure they all passed. We practiced, things that we knew that were part of the test as a team, and we went over things people weren't good at doing. Like on the weekends, we would go practice drownproofing, or we practice knot tying and, you know, treading and, all stuff like that. So, you do things together, and, you perform together, and you pay the price together if you don't perform. So, you'll see. It's no different than if you have a sports team and, you're a back and your lineman needs help with blocking, right? You may chat with him about it and say, you're up too high. You need to get a little lower, or, whatever. You're just a team. Think of it that way. Um, should I be prepped for knot tying, buddy toe, brick tread? Yeah, sure. I mean, why would I ever say not be prepped for that? You know, if it's part of your future, you should be prepped for it. And that goes for anybody, by the way. For some of you guys that are listening, that aren't going spec ops or military even, it doesn't matter what's in your future. You should be preparing yourself for it. Whether that's an MCAT to get into med school, or LSAT to get into law school, whatever. Take extra courses so you can have some, a basis to put your knowledge on. Whatever those preparatory things are, you got to do it. So yeah, do all that stuff. When getting ready for SOAS, do you recommend sticking to phase 1 or phase 2 of your training plan? I will say this: most people who are doing a SOAS program are doing phase 2, but they may need to add a longer ruck. Like we usually do, like as we go into phase 2, we'll do like a 4-mile run, 4-mile ruck combo. You may want to do the 8-mile ruck. This is a really good one as well. This program that we're actually on right now, we have a few guys preparing for a variety of selections, and that's a good one to help with progressing up to, getting your mileage up there, getting your speed faster, getting your runs and your rucks together. But for most people who have submitted packages to SOAS, they've already done phase 1, so they've crushed the PST, and now they should be focusing on phase 2 long before today, right? Because usually submit by December. I usually have guys starting on phase 2 by January, or end of January, beginning of February. We start on phase 2. What knots do you recommend knowing to tie? If you go to my reels, I tied all 5 of them. Pretty easy. Is there a military standard like know these knots? Yes, there's 5 knots you should know. And I did the video of me tying all these knots for you. If you just simply go to the reels, you will see it. I did it like a week ago. So, how do you recommend dealing with fear of failure and other anxieties? Great question. In fact, I'm writing a book on it right now. In fact, you'll see it right here. This right here. Check this out. Boom. Fear of failure. Anxiety. It's going to be covered in this. But I will share with you some of the things I do. In fact, I'll even pull up that chapter, because there's a chapter in here. There's 10 chapters. And the chapter that is chapter 5, failing is a learning experience. And chapter 9 is managing doubt. Don't listen to yourself, talk to yourself, which can be somewhat anxiety ridden. Yeah, if you're doubting your abilities, we all experience doubt. Welcome to being human. What matters most is how you respond to doubt, not that doubt exists. Um, you only control what you can control. Your work ethic is in your control. Opinions of you not in your control. Focus on your work and the action it requires, not outcomes. Besides, doubts and anxieties are usually just opinions in your head that you have formed, not facts, right? Learning to control these thoughts and emotions is kind of the key to building the never quit mindset and mental toughness in itself. In fact, if you can have these doubts in your head and the anxieties about what you're doing and fear of failure, you can also have thoughts of success and um, not having doubts, like turning doubts into positive thoughts, right? They're just thoughts. Neither one of them matter, right? I would rather have some positive thoughts than negative thoughts. You got to flip the switch. But my advice is assess yourself, you know, ask yourself or a mentor, where you can improve. Discipline requires honesty. That's going to give you a baseline of fact that you can start working to turn those weaknesses into strengths. That's where fear of failure starts going away, and anxiety as well, right? Besides, remember, you're never going to eliminate doubt and anxiety. You're human. Congratulations. But you can improve your ability to act in spite of it all, right? Not just just have these continual thoughts spiraling in your head. Another thing to do, I like to do, is called name it and tame it, right? And it's a really cool thing. You can Google this term, name it and tame it. And basically, when you have all these intrusive thoughts coming through your head and they form up, fear of failure, doubting yourself, anxiety of the future, give it a name, right? Okay, this is me fearing I can't swim fast enough. This is me fearing I'm going to fail something. This is me fearing, right? Just give it a name. And it doesn't have to be the name fearing of swimming. It can be a silly name, even. And your brain kind of categorizes it better for you. And it becomes less of this intrusive thought process that just completely distracts you from making any progress. So that's kind of what the book is all about. There's a physiology side to it that anxiety keeps you up at night and you mess up your sleep and you don't recover well. There's a psychological factor to it by helping you flip the switch. But it's a great question, but it's a big answer. But my short answer is flip it. Um, all right. So, what are thoughts on ethical dilemmas we will inevitably face when dealing with mission critical situations? These are great questions to ask. There's countless ways to do it. My advice is this is if you're going to have a difficult decision to make sure you are good at making good decisions. Okay? That means in your personal life, you are making good moral decisions. You need to be a good person, right? You don't need to be, you know, an asshole, a dick to other people, cheating on your wife, right? There's some morals that need to be um, just a little stronger, right? And then when you come to those decisions that you make, and even if they're right or wrong, you have a basis to say, this is the right decision that I thought was right at that time. I'm not a dirtbag. I'm you have to be able to justify these things. So the beautiful thing of some of your training in the future is you will go through countless case studies and um, decisions made by others, and you get to debate them and like, what would you do in this situation, right? And somebody's going to, help you with those answers. And, you know, so there you go. So somebody says, I don't have any doubt for buds. I'm excited for it. I want to be on the SDV team. Great. That's a great way to do it. A lot of people confuse the anxiety and doubts that you have for buds, or whether or not I've trained hard enough, um, with just excitement, right? In fact, give it the name. I have pre-game jitters. Right before you go out to a competition, you got butterflies going. You're getting fired up. I mean, that's a lot of what people confuse with the negative sides of that. And I always just called it pre-game jitters. If I'm about to give a speech in front of an audience, I'm a little bit nervous. I call it pre-game jitters. It helps me to name it and tame it. And it's a logical process that you can really turn some of those, like I said, intrusive thoughts and your doubts into something that is actually fuel for later. Leif says, Stu, sometimes it's easier to push through a hard workout than it is to push through a task that requires hard thinking, with brain fog. What do you do when you don't feel like thinking hard? That's a good one. Because I tell you what, I have had, things that I write, like the Ageless Athlete book I just wrote for 50 and over, this new book I'm creating. I've had moments where I'm like, yeah, I can't think right now. And I needed a break. And so when I do that, I'll just go take a break. I'll go for a run for 10 minutes. I'll go for a walk and breathe. I'll go outside, sit down in my backyard and just not have a phone in my hand and just relax. Sometimes it's all you need. And then that clears up, any brain fog that you're having, any like thoughts of an inability to think. That's what helps me. Sometimes I'll just go do a whole workout. Like right in the mid afternoon, we usually go swimming. And those are some of the best days for me to like have that mid afternoon lull that I typically have. Sometimes I'll like, man, I need to take a nap, and I'll just go, screw it. I'm going to go swimming 30 minutes, get wet, clean up, come back refreshed. And sure enough, if I would have take a 30-minute nap versus a 30-minute swim and getting cleaned and showered up and coming back, I'm much more refreshed, ready to go than had I just slept for 30 minutes. So for me, it's action, right? If you can't think, just move. And sometimes when you're moving, you'll start thinking better. Sometimes I have writer's block if I'm writing an article or trying to finish a book. Um, and that action is where it all starts again for me. Good question. In your experience, what separates those who succeed in SEAL training from those who fail? I think I've heard you say people who actually prepare for training have a higher sense of making it. Yes, of course. If you are prepared, you're going to do a lot better. However, I've seen some people very prepared not make it, and it was some things that I think they were, ill prepared for, like, getting yelled at, having negative feedback all the time, being wet and sandy and cold all the time, um, having long days. They were used to training 2 or 3 times a day, but they would take naps in between and have a chill out time in between workouts. Whereas at Buds, yeah, you might work out in the morning, but you're going to be on your feet all day doing other stuff. Might not be a workout, but it's getting the boats ready for an afternoon paddle, or you're getting ready to do the O course. So you're just, on your feet, you're going to the O course, getting that all prepared, and you got gear to take care of. I mean, you're just always busy. And I think sometimes that gets most people. And some people just fail, fail to meet the standard. But what separates them? I wish I had a really good answer, but the basic answer is it's preparation. If you look at the majority of the attrition rate, the people who are part of that majority of who fail or quit are ill prepared. Period. Period. Doing the right thing is obvious, but I'm recalling a story regarding Charles Martland. Yeah, I can't get into specifics on that one because I have to Google it first. All right, let's show some more videos. Let's see, got some videos here. So this one is, I think, same one. I think I got some videos here without fins. Got some with fins. All right, here's another one with fins. This is interesting. Couple with fins here. All right, so it looks like the kicks are small. Let's see, kick off the wall. Yeah, this might be the same guy, just different video. So if you notice, this guy has a big scissor kick with little flutter kicks. Not bad. I personally like to do this version if the current's going with me, but if I'm going against the current, I like to do flutter kicks, but you got to do bigger flutter kicks than that. These flutter kicks here, like if you notice on his weak side, he does constant flutter kicks. That's what I do, but these constant flutter kicks have got to be bigger, right? You're hardly even using your legs. You're mainly using your arms, right? But when you go on your strong side, notice you got a little more power on that big scissor kick. Your kicks need to be almost as big as this, whereas they're just tiny, tiny little flutter kicks. I would open it up a little bit and try to get those little tinier flutter kicks at least 18 inches apart, right? Versus 6. Let's see. If you fail at buds and not quit, can you keep coming back until you get through? Even people who quit can keep coming back if they can improve their abilities. So yeah, that's not an issue. Let's see here. Got another video. All right, I'll show this video here real quick. See what we got. Looks like this one's without fins. So let's try this. All right, top arm, bottom arm, kick. So need to hold the glide a little longer here. See that glide? Like you're already starting to pull. Can't do flip turns. I think we might have seen this one, but I know I've graded it personally. Maybe I didn't show it to you guys. So top arm, bottom arm, kick. Now notice this. See that? See here's something I like to do. When I pull that top arm, my face is already out of the water. What's happened here is he's pulling. His face is still underwater. Actually, it's kind of plowing the surface. And then he's going to pull this bottom arm, turn his head, and breathe all at the same time. You see that? That's a lot to get done, like from here to here. So turn your head with the top arm, breathe with the bottom arm. Can't do flip turns, like I said. So let's see what we got here. Yeah, you need to hold the glide longer. Let's see what it looks like here. Top arm, bottom arm, kick, 1 Mississippi, 2. Yeah, you got to try to get another second at least of glide time in there. Try not to kick so much while you're gliding. Just keep your feet still. I mean, overall, it's a fast 50. It's up there in the 45-second range, but my question is, if you're capable of holding a swim of 7:30, if you're a 7:30 swimmer, that pace is appropriate. If you're not, you're starting off way too fast, and you either need to get in better condition so you can hold that, 45 to 48 second lap. And if you can do that, you're going to have a sub 8-minute swim. You just got to get in shape to be able to do that. If you're not swimming 8 minutes right now, you got to work on your pace to do that, or work on your conditioning, because your stroke is capable of, pretty fast, but your maintenance of that stroke is probably going to be unsustainable, in my opinion. All right, let's see. Let's do one more, and then we'll go back to these questions. What we got here? You guys can see this. What do you do here? You do 2 kickoffs? Okay, dolphin kick. Just do 1 dolphin kick if you're going to do any. Take out these flutter kicks. That's exhausting. Okay, you need to work on your breaststroke kick and take out these flutter kicks. Yeah. You're going to have 500 flutter kicks by the end of this 500-yard swim, and I think that is way too much. Work on your kick, because that kick right there is like an altered breaststroke kick, and these flutter kicks have got to go. I mean, it's fast, but it's unsustainable and a lot of work. So if you want to do a good 500-yard swim, you need to be efficient with your strokes and your kicks. So, for instance, the other day I was working with a kid who had like 15 strokes to get across the pool. And that is way too many strokes to get across a 25-yard pool, right? We have since gotten him down to about 6, 7 strokes, and he's doing a lot better. Able to he dropped his time by over a minute in just a week by just adding a glide and stop kicking. So there you go. How do you stay motivated when you reach a plateau in your training and you feel like you're not progressing? You know what? First of all, my advice is this. When it comes to motivation is great, but it probably only is going to last a couple weeks, right? After that, it's habits and discipline are going to get you to your training. And my advice is this: instead of worried about being motivated, worry about being disciplined to go do something, and a little more, maybe a less emotional, be a little more analytical, and say, something I'm doing is not working. It's either my training or it's my recovery, and assess it. Be logical instead of worrying about motivation. Motivation is fleeting, right? You need good habits, you need discipline, and you need to be smart with your assessments so you can say, oh, I'm not progressing. That means this, this, and this. It doesn't mean, oh, why aren't I motivated? Maybe that's it. No, probably you're doing something wrong. You're not sleeping well. You're not eating well. You're not hydrating. You're not getting electrolytes. Your programming needs improvement. You need to add something new to it. Doing the same old workout 5 times a week and you wonder why you're not progressing. So assess yourself. Don't worry about motivation. Do you have any advice on dealing with social fears? These are especially hard because you almost have zero control in how people react to what you do or say in life, but also in buzz and the teams. Well, here's the deal. My advice is read some of the Stoics, right? Read some Marcus Aurelius, right? He has a lot to say. Some Plato, some Socrates. They have a lot to say about people's opinions, right? For instance, if you wouldn't ask for their advice, why are you going to take their opinions? Um, why are you going to let their opinions matter to you? So there's a lot to that one to unravel, but I think you're going to find some peace in controlling what you can control and not worrying about what you can't control, right? That's right out of the Stoics as well. Joey says, my best 500 is a 736. No glide, but instead of continuous arm pull. I'm okay at gliding if I try, but on my bad side, it's terrible. Should I just stay on the continuous arm pull? Well, I mean, anybody who swims a 730, I'm going to start my suggestions off with, hey, great, you don't need me. But if continuous arm pulls are making your pull-ups, push-ups, and, well, pull-ups and push-ups suck, then you may want to fix it, right? So my advice is this: do your 730 and then go do the pull-up, push-up, sit-ups part of the test and see how you do. You know, because you've spent so much energy in the pool, you may not have any juice on the run. So, you know, it is about conservation of energy, not only reduce your arm pulls and reduce your kicks and increase your glide at a maximum process so you are fast without a lot of effort, so you have plenty of juice in the tank for pull-up, push-up, sit-ups, and a 1.5 mile run. Because I promise you, it doesn't take long to see like a wrestler who can crush any of the calisthenics in the run, jump into the pool, swim 18 strokes per length for a 500-yard swim, you know, crawl out of the pool exhausted, and then see close to a 50% drop in reps of his calisthenics and add another minute and a half or two to his 1.5 mile timed run. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that. And it's just because the guy overworked his swim. Now, your story's a little bit different, but I've seen a lot of swimmers do the same thing. They double down on their swim to try to get sub 7, right? Which I've seen countless times. Even seen some guys break 6, but the rest of their PST, mediocre at best. You know, I would rather see if you could swim a 730, you know, why don't you swim an 8 and have some juice to score better on the other events? You know, especially if it's dogging your run. You know, if you got a 10-minute run and a 7-minute swim, I wouldn't worry about your swim too much, but I would try to focus on using less energy for your swim, trying to get close to that time. There's no reason why you can't do a 730 and glide the whole thing. I mean, we got guys on the Instagram that are hitting 730s with 4 or 5 strokes per length. They're just gliding versus working. So, my advice is glide more, and you'll have better PST scores because of it. What else we got over here? I've been selected for Marine OCS in September. Do you take guys into your training group preparing for OCS? Yes, we have several in our training group right now. We got OCS and TBS Marines, and we got enlisted Marines. We got all types. Just curious, man, did you ever use a mantra or phrase grinding through the BS of boot camp pre-buds? Yes, I actually did. That got you back from shitty thought land. Yeah, you know what I did is I remember when I was running my first and only marathon, right? My goal was to get it under 4 hours, right? And barely did that. It was the most boring event of my life. But when I went in there, I saw people over here warming up, and they were cross country runners from Kenya that I realized they're in a completely different mindset than I'm in. I was just trying to finish a marathon. They had a goal of breaking their PR and winning a marathon. And I realized right there, this was before I went to Buds, I realized right there that I really needed to be in a mindset of training to compete, right? Because I promise you this, if you will never think about quitting when you're thinking about winning. And that's either individual events, that's boat crew events. Like you can instill it in that boat crew to let's go, let's push, if you're ever in survival mode, I call it, where you're just trying to reach the minimum standards, I promise you that's when the negative thoughts start coming in there, and you're gonna be borderline failing, or you're just the thoughts of quitting are rampant in your brain. But if you're thinking about winning, I promise you will never think about quitting. It's not even part of the process, right? And the really only thing you're worried about, if you're in that mindset of training to win and training to compete with the best in the class versus being at the bottom where everybody borderline fails, you're going to be in a good mindset to crush that thing. And you will never think about quitting. I promise you. Do you feel guys who purchase workout plans like from the SOCM athlete are at a disadvantage compared to those who don't purchase workout plans? Huh. Um, that's a weird question, to be honest with you. Um, I think the SOCM athlete, Hell Night things, I don't have a problem with those. I think they're great exposure to some of those moments that you're going to be feeling, when you're going through that. You don't have to do it. I mean, there have been times when those didn't exist and people still getting through buds. So it's not a mandatory type of thing. It's just one of those things. If you want to test yourself, you've busted your butt in workouts, and now you want to just see what you will do in that moment when you are tired and hungry and thirsty and wet and sandy and miserable. Um, how are you going to react whenever you're tasked to continue to move? And that's what those things are for. I don't have a problem with those things. And I don't think one's an advantage or a disadvantage as far as making it through, but it is an advantage personally to realize, hey, I've been pushed to that moment and I did okay. I think I'm ready to do this versus having constant doubts of wonder what's going to happen when I get to Hell Week. Well, you just spent 24 hours of Hell Week. You kind of know, you can do this. It just gives you a little more confidence. Let's see. I'm a freshman starting to prep for SOAS, wondering what's the best place to start is to get better in the pool. That's a great place to start. In fact, I would probably start with, your first event that is going to determine your success in going to SOAS is to crush that PST. So my advice is start focusing on PST prep workout programs. We got a phase 1 program that is nothing but PST prep plus pool skills and swimming with fins. And so it goes beyond just the PST, kind of introduces you to some of the phase 2 of tactical fitness, which is preparing for the actual selection. So that's where I'd start. And then from there, reassess, like where your PST scores, where your lifts are. And you might need to do a lift cycle after that, which is fine. You might need to get a little more strong and durable. You got 2 years. So I would definitely recommend understanding what cycling through workouts means as far as doing a lift cycle here, doing a cows and cardio cycle here, letting it all mesh together. Next thing you know, at the end of the year, you're faster, you're stronger, you have more endurance, you're just ready to take on whatever challenge there is. Somebody says no weights, just do calisthenics. Well, I mean that depends. If you were a endurance athlete who's never lifted weights, I would say you need to lift weights. If you're a powerlifting football player, I would say you need to do more calisthenics and endurance. So that is not an answer. That is universal. That's an answer for big dudes who doesn't need to lift weights. But if you're a little guy that needs to lift weights, it's not a good answer. All right. So I guess that's it. I think I answered all the questions. Does rucking kill tennis shoes faster? Yes. Yeah. Do you include rucking mileage as running mileage when you're counting miles on a pair? Yes, I would, because that is a lot of mileage. Let's see. Could I be a doctor and go into PJs? And I have a herniated disc and aspirations to endure PJ training. Any tips, if any? Help me with it. Um, that's a good question. I have seen doctors try out, and I can't remember the outcome of that, if they were able to or not. Um, Perhaps I think that would be really cool if PJs had an actual physician. Um, but with herniated discs, it could be an issue. So you got to. I would say the professional education status you're in is going to be easier to deal with than the herniated disc issue that you have to endure PJ selection, which will be hashed out during the enlistment process at MEPS and beyond, because you'll probably need waivers if you have any medical record of herniation of a disc or surgeries or anything like that. Is it a bad idea to stack a running program and lifting? Well, depends. Are you trying to get better at both? Because getting better at both at the same time is really difficult. Now, you can maintain one and get better at the other. So you use one as a primary, other as a secondary. That's possible. However, heavy lifting while you're trying to get faster at running timed runs, probably not so good. Running a lot of mileage while you're trying to get stronger and get bigger, probably a little more challenging and not feasible. So when I wouldn't say it's a bad idea, but your goals have to be suitable for those. We run and we lift in our winter lift cycle. However, our primary goal is lifting. Our secondary goal is maintaining some cardio. We're not running a lot in the middle of a lift cycle. We're actually reducing our mileage of running so we can lift better and focus more on running or on lifting. And the opposite holds true whenever we are transitioning into more running and progressing with our running and calisthenics. We are lifting less as a maintenance plan, but we are lifting less. So you got to be smart about it. Well, if you're focused on running faster, don't lift too heavy or too much. That will affect your ability to run faster, especially on the legs. You can lift upper body pretty heavy, but you still need some recovery time. And if you're running your ass off, strength and hypertrophy may be interrupted. Love your book, sir. Almost have all of them because I can't decide which one I want to go and talk to all branches of recruiters. But for real, your books have helped me. Thank you. All right, Wayne. That's awesome. Pick one. Get on it. All right. Looks like I've answered all these questions. Advice if you don't know how to swim. Yes, take lessons. I will be honest with you, I'm not one of those guys who can teach someone who can't swim how to swim very well. If you can swim across the pool, I can teach you the CSS, but going from I'm scared of the water and I'm going to drown to swimming across the pool, that's an experience I don't do very often, if ever. So I'm not your guy to learn how to swim. If you can get across the pool, I can definitely teach you how to swim better. But my advice is take lessons. In response to that question about combining two programs, if you're new to working out, is it a better idea as you have no starting ground and want to be able to actually start gaining any muscle? If you want to start gaining muscle, my advice is do a hypertrophy cycle and limit your cardio to warm ups and cool downs versus actually progressing your mileage each week to be on a running program. That's my advice. But, all of this takes a little more time, right? If you're limited in time, you're going to be limited in the ability to get good at everything. And you may have to try to cram everything into one cycle. And if you do that, your progress is going to be not as quick as if you just focus on lifting or you just focus on running with some maintenance stuff on the backside of it. That's how we do it. So you can check out the term seasonal tactical fitness periodization. And this is the system we have been using now for over, 26 years. And it has evolved in its many phases. I'll put it over here in this Instagram as well. But seasonal tactical fitness periodization, Google it, check it out. Something I created almost 30 years ago, and it works. In fact, all these programs are part of that journey. Seasonal tactical fitness periodization. This is a spring training cycle, focused on cows and cardio. With a block periodization, every fourth week, you do a little bit of lifting to maintain your winter lift gains. Spring training, seasonal tactical fitness spring cycle. Winter cycle, increase strength, crush the PST. See, you have a focus of primarily getting stronger, right? And bigger. And you have a secondary focus of maintaining PSTs and, calisthenics and cardio. There's a system that can make it work optimally for you versus just mixing it all together. One day you do strength, one day you do running. It's okay to do it that way. I just think over the time of the years, I've tried that method, and I think, actually having a budget of what you're trying to do in a 12 to 24 week period actually makes more sense to me versus program hopping and doing a strength training program over here and a running program over here. If someone asks, like, where are the biggest mistakes I've seen in people training, that would be one of them, I think. All right, folks, I do need to go. I appreciate your time. Go check out stewsmithfitness.com. You'll see a ton of programs over there, articles, as well. I sent you a couple of links here that you can go check out some of those articles and videos over there on CSS. Check out social media. I got TikTok, Reels on Instagram, YouTube channel, even Facebook, Stu Smith Fitness. And you'll see some more fitness type information for the person preparing for military, law enforcement, and firefighter jobs. Plus, save 15%. Use the Live15 coupon code, StewSmithFitness.com. Appreciate your time. We'll catch you up next week.